Hey folks, and welcome to the latest installment of Dave's Impressions. This time around, World of Warcraft Classic. Yes, the way the famous MMO used to be has been recreated, and I wanted to see if it was engaging or if we've come too far in MMO design. These impressions were taken from playing the game for around 24 hours. Enjoy! I've been a fan of World of Warcraft for over a decade. I tried out the public beta before launch and bought the game a couple of weeks after it was released in 2004. I've skipped expansions and come back for others, but Blizzard's MMO has always captured my imagination over all the others in the genre I have tried. Heading into what I remembered the base game being, I decided I wanted a character class with options as to how they play, but most of all, a healing spell. I've never played a druid before, and it seemed like the perfect choice. I made a night elf, and off I went. I'm struck by the slower pace of the gameplay. Every level is a challenge. Every fight is a challenge. Facing an enemy at the same level as you can be harrowing, as your chance to hit them is less than you think it is. For a stress-free time, you'll want to be fighting enemies 2 to 3 levels below you, green instead of yellow. It's easier to manage health and mana this way. Enemies a level or 2 levels higher? Forget about it. There were a few instances where I'd come across the area I needed to be in for a quest, noticed the enemies were a level or 2 higher, and I decided to come back later. Alongside how harrowing each fight can be, every item your character needs for survival in this game is expensive. Every 2 levels you have to find a class trainer and purchase new skills. They're not cheap, and because of the price, it's not advised to buy every new skill when it's available. If there's a skill you don't think you'll be using, leave it alone. This is why for the first time in years, professions were necessary on my character. I trained in skinning and herbalism, and made frequent trips to the auction house to sell my spoils to other players at an inflated price. This is required because the drops from enemies and the rewards from quests aren't enough to get you through. The random green drops might give you an upgrade, but it all takes up bag space, and bag space is another premium. Inventory management is the name of the game. In the first area, any new 6-slot bag I found was a godsend. There were times I was out questing and I heard the dreaded "inventory is full" line when trying to loot a downed foe. Which items didn't I need, and was it worth the long trek going to town and back to empty my bags for coin? I wonder if movement speed was increased in subsequent expansions of the game because I don't remember the world being this vast and it taking this long to run everywhere. It does bring back memories of how excited I was when my first character hit 40 and I was running to buy my mount. Every little upgrade feels like a big deal. Each new piece of armor increases damage and survivability. Each step forward matters in WoW Classic. Despite all I've just said, I don't feel WoW Classic is wasting my time. There's a dance between struggle and reward. Time is not as immediate in an MMO. For example, fighting diseased thistlebears would give my character rabies. It's a debuff lasting 10 minutes. On its face, it sounds horrendous. 10 whole minutes of a weakened character, with how important every stat point is? However, because of the nature of time in a game like this, the rabies goes away before you know it. The low drop rates when killing enemies for quests is noticeable while grinding, but when all is said and done, it's a small drop in the ocean of the game, just not a consistent one. I get into a different headspace when playing an MMO. Grinding is seen as a dirty word when discussing games. If the player is spending their time killing the same monsters over and over again for small gains until they're ready to continue on with the main game, it's perceived as a negative. I would agree in most games it is a negative, but it's baked into what WoW Classic is. What's more, I found grinding meditative. It's not just a good way to fill the end of an experience bar and increase the likelihood of drop goodies and more items to sell to the merchants, but due to how a player has to pay attention in a one-on-one encounter with an enemy their own level, confidence builds as the player moves from one enemy to the next over a prolonged span of time. Every game system can wear out its welcome, however. The sheen of the grind was starting to wear off around level 20 as I was entering Ashenvale, but by this point there was the acquisition of cat form to distract me. The Druid has options, but starting out, the options are limited. At level 10, Bear Form was a huge upgrade from shooting spells. The quest was in an area with level 12 enemies, which made me wait until I had teamed up with another druid to acquire it. The extra armor is a big help, and it's evident how big a boost it is when changing back into Night Elf form to heal. Hits do way more damage. Cat form is speedy, and not just because of the feline quickness talent I put points into to increase movement speed. If bear form is like a warrior, cat form is like a rogue. The critical hits are bountiful and the damage is fierce. The cat is not as robust as the bear, but it more than compensates. I had forgotten about the craziness of class quests, however. Hey, go over to the other side of the world for us. Aquatic form would have to wait. I spent 10 levels as a bear and 10 levels without any shape-shifting capabilities at all. This breeds familiarity. It's the same regarding the zones. I spent the majority of my time in Darkshore. There's a quiet loneliness to the zone, the moon always shining through the clouds, creating a dreary haze. I could see the land and its inhabitants broken as I made my way up and down the coastline. When I left Darkshore, it was similar to leaving Teldrassil. I knew this place now. I had conquered it. I didn't need to be as cautious. I knew the dangers of the zone and how to mitigate them. It's why my interest waned heading into Ashenvale, having to start the process all over again. This makes me wish for a few quality of life changes for modern WoW. What I miss most of all is the Dungeon Finder. I was the right level to play through a few dungeons, but in the original game you had to take the time to travel to the dungeons in question. You had to put together a group yourself, either through your guild or through chat. And while it sounds like playing through a dungeon is a good way to gain upgrades and experience, most don't recommend it unless you have all the quests for the dungeon, which means more roaming. The reason I wish it was easier to group up for a dungeon is the dungeons have always been my favorite part of playing an MMO, getting together with other people for a challenge, each of us playing our roles to the best of our ability. The feeling when playing with a group clicks is among my favorite in gaming. When it falls apart, it can be the most frustrating. I bring this up because playing with others was the most fun I had with WoW Classic. I already talked about teaming up with another druid to get our bear form, but anytime a quest seemed too difficult, I asked if anyone wanted to group up for it over the zone's chat, and most of the time, I got responses. It was a wonderful feeling plowing through these areas too difficult for us if we were on our own. There was one occurrence where I was questing in an area with another player. They asked me for help with a nearby quest. I helped and then we teamed up for a few more. It speaks to how even playing through the game with one other person enhances the experience. MMOs are meant to be played with others. As an introvert, I understand the joy of knowing other players are around, but being able to level on my own. Modern WoW skews heavy in this direction. It's rare to see anyone while leveling. There should be a happy middle ground. Oh, and before I forget, I once ran back to Aberdeen to hand in quests and to buy new skills over in Darnassus, and the town was decimated. A coordinated attack by the Horde. I saw all these orange names jumping around next to bodies of the townsfolk. If this was a PvP server, they would have cut me down where I stood. The original game made it far too easy to hate the other side. So, should you play WoW Classic? As an exercise in nostalgia, it's worth it. If you played World of Warcraft in its early days, playing this will be educational as to why the game was enjoyable back then, and also why it has changed to be friendlier to the time of its players. It stresses the importance of cooperation in its design. It emphasizes a slower approach, to be cautious, and to be prepared for what the game might throw at you. It's a nice place to visit for a while, to kick back and work towards the next level, or to cross a few more quests off the list, but for every player, the line between enjoyment and having their time wasted will be different. The time commitment and monthly subscription fee may feel like too much for little reward. It's important to remember all the time we spend playing video games serves no grander purpose than personal fulfillment, and it's up to each of us to make the call on whether the time and money we dedicate is worth it. On this point, while playing, I had a voice in the back of my mind wondering what the future holds for WoW Classic, and if spending the time getting a character to cap might be futile. Performing the same task in the modern game holds promise of future expansions and updates. We don't know if WoW Classic is going to stay as the base game, or continue the expansion cycle anew. It's up to you to decide whether or not any game is worth playing, but the time and monetary commitment of an MMO is a different beast. more for WoW Classic as it's harkening back to older game design. For myself, I had fun playing WoW Classic. I appreciated a look back at the start of the game and its positives, but for me the time commitment is not worth it. I'm having a lot more fun with the modern game. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on WoW Classic down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, why not buy me a coffee? There's a link in the description. If you'd like to help me out in other ways, please give the video a like, share it on your favorite social media sites, or subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, I hope you're all having a wonderful day.